crying little.
Yoga.
I've had this article for a while, and it's very interesting to see how a very small group of people, how they operate and how they work. But this says Asian Americans sue New York City over school desegregation plan. New York City is trying to ensure more racial diversity at its elite public high schools, but one group is fighting back. A group of Asian American parent civil rights groups, and that is laughable and ironic and hypocritical to contact a civil rights group, the very civil rights that Black people started and fought for, and marched for. But a parent teacher organization are attempting to block changes to the administration process for New York City's competitive entrance exam schools that would make the school more racially diverse. A group filed a federal lawsuit in Manhattan on Thursday against New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and the chancellor of the New York City Department of Education, arguing that the plan to reserve 20% of seating for low-income students who barely miss the cutoff score for administration discriminates against Asian American children, and if they meet the score, whether it's at the higher end or the lower end, it doesn't matter. They've met the score. But this is in itself is discrimination. And when you hear low income, these are trigger words for Black people. When they say low income, impoverished, or, there are certain words that I've heard in the community and how they label Black people, but this is mainly talking about Black children, and this is one of the beneficiaries of this elite public school. We all have the American dream of equal opportunity. Her parents came from China with nothing, moved to the U.S., and came into a community where it's majority Asian, and was able to use that to get to where she got. And she said, I was able to achieve what my parents came to this country for, but by using race preference to determine student enrollment at these excellent schools, it's like the mayor is taking someone else's dream away, which is bullshit. They want to keep it strictly for them. They want the resources. That's the issue. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with a group that has less melanin or more melanin being more intelligent because of that. Your race does not determine your intelligence. It has to do with resources. It's about what you know and what you have. It has to do with discrimination and being marginalized and being kept away from knowledge and information that other people have. This is why they are fighting so hard to keep, Black people out of this school, even though it's in Brooklyn, because if Black people had access to this information, they'd be able to navigate into whatever field they want to, and they would be able to excel. And that's been the issue. It has nothing to do with the learning curve. It has nothing to do with you being stupid. It has nothing to do with an IQ. All of that bullshit is made up. It has to do with the resources that you have and the way the system is set up, and will that information and those resources work for you. That's it. And this is why this high school or these elite public schools are fighting for them so hard, because they want that resource for themselves. They don't want to have to share and then have to compete against, Black children, because there's a lot of brilliant Black children. But reading on, the issue is access to the city's 8 specialized schools, which include nationally recognized schools like Stuyvesant High School, the Brooklyn School of Science, and Brooklyn Tech High School. Each year, the 8 schools admit 4,000 freshmen from a pool of 30,000 8th graders who take the specialized high school administration test. As it stands, students are admitted purely based on test scores. That's why I said whether you're at the high end or lower end, if you make it, you make it. And they said that these schools are hyper segregated. Asian Americans make up 16% of the public school population, but account for 75% of students enrolled in Stuyvesant. For example, 66% of students at Bronx Science and 60% of students at Brooklyn Tech. And Black and Latino students account for less than 11% of the students in the specialized high school, despite accounting for more than 70% of the students in New York public schools. So this just shows you that the resources are going to these specialized schools, that there's extra knowledge and attention being paid to the students that go to these specialized schools. And there are homeschooling kits. There are learning material that you can purchase yourself. And I knew nothing about this. I'm not talking about flashcards and reading a book that you buy out of the store to your child. I'm talking about real learning materials that schools have. This is how a lot of white students and non-Black students have been getting by and excelling in school, because their parents can fill out a few documents, and they can have answer keys, and they can have certain materials to even prep their kids before they get into the next grade, or before they even get into school. They can start them out very young. And this is something that I didn't even know about until I worked for the company. So like I said, this has nothing to do with someone having a lower IQ. This has nothing to do with someone being dumb. This has to do with people purposely withholding knowledge or information and education from people to keep them in a certain place, or in a certain box, or in a certain space. And, low income stands for, they say Black and Latino, but I'll say Black people, because this is purposely done. You hear this right here. It's purposely done. I've seen it myself with, the learning materials that, majority white. Where I was at the company, it's majority white people calling in for these materials, and hardly any Black, people calling in for these materials. This is done on purpose to hold Black people in the position of the working poor, because like I said, this nation can only survive on slave labor. They have that going on in the prisons, but they also have, Black people who cannot get loans to start businesses, do not have certain opportunities that other people have, and knowledge and information that other people have to keep us in this situation, in this position that we're in, because they benefit off of our poverty level and the fact that they work, the working poor, so hard. And that's what keeps this system going. When you think of Asian Americans, their population numbers are so low here in the United States, but they are over 75% in these schools. And then, no matter what, they're going to be accepted into certain colleges, and then they're going to be floated along. This has nothing to do with working harder, studying harder, or a group of people being stupid or having a learning curve or anything. This is done by design. You see it's done by design, because you wouldn't have them trying to keep low-income children. You would think that they would have a heart and say, well, let's see if we can get the best of the best and, excel these people and, get some good talent in here regardless of race. And people are always trying to talk about how they are sick of it being about race. Every fucking thing in this country, around this fucking world, is about race. And you see it here, even in education. They are fighting hard in Brooklyn, mind you, to keep Black people out of this school. Because here it says government has no business fiddling with the administration requirements to public schools in order to obtain their desired racial balance. And this is the attorney on behalf of the Asian parents. It's disgusting. They come over here from their countries where they're poor and in poverty and they're peasants, and then they come over here and they do something like this. They kiss the asses of white people and they get these opportunities. They're seen as the good minority, the good pet, and then they come over here and they discriminate against Black people. It's absolutely disgusting. This is happening in Brooklyn, of all places. And what they're worried about is people going in and looking at the administration process and seeing how they are just flooding in not the smartest, not the best, not people who have passed the test, but they're just flooding Asians in there so they can get a leg up and get pushed through and, have these accolades behind their name, even though they didn't really earn it. And then you have, the majority of the population there in the public schools being Black people, and those kids are not even given a chance. I did go on to YouTube and look up a video. It is majority Asian. There's white people there, of course. They have to have their precious Caucasians there. There are a few Indian children, and I saw one Black boy. But I'll go ahead and leave it right here. Let me know what you think about this lawsuit, this bullshit ass lawsuit, and I will see you in the next one.